Here's a shocking truth. 82% of HR leaders admit their performance management systems aren't meeting fundamental objectives. But here's what's even more surprising. The difference between winning teams and struggling teams isn't talent. It's not resources. It's something every leader controls but most ignore: standards. By the end of this video, you'll have the exact framework that Toyota, IKEA, and Samsung use to build world-class teams through crystal clear standards. And you'll know how to implement it starting tomorrow. Right now, only 2% of Fortune 500 CHROs believe their performance systems actually inspire employees to improve. Think about that. 98% know they're failing. And the cost? Organizations are bleeding talent because high-performing employees, the ones you can't afford to lose, are 87% more likely to leave when standards aren't clear or consistently enforced. Here's what's actually happening. 33% of HR professionals report that poor team collaboration is destroying employee morale. And get this, only 5.9% of organizations communicate their goals daily. That means 94% of companies expect their teams to hit targets they barely understand. But some companies have cracked the code. Toyota has built its entire empire on one principle: continuous improvement through non-negotiable standards. Their suppliers are evaluated on specific key performance indicators every single year, and only those who meet or exceed standards get recognized. IKEA's IWAY supplier code has been enforcing strict standards for over 20 years, covering everything from worker rights to environmental impact. I'm going to break down 3 strategies these companies use to turn standards from paper policies into team performance engines. And here's what makes this different from typical leadership advice. These are the actual frameworks they use internally, not the corporate speak they put on their websites. If you're getting value from these Fortune 500 insights that most leaders never see, hit that subscribe button now. We decode executive strategies like this every single week, and you don't want to miss what's coming. Strategy number 1. Define standards so clear that a new employee could execute them without asking questions. Here's where most leaders fail. They create vague policies that sound good in meetings but mean nothing on the ground. Work hard. Be professional. Deliver quality. These aren't standards, they're wishes. Toyota doesn't just tell suppliers to deliver quality parts. They specify exact tolerances, delivery windows, defect rates, and sustainability metrics. In 2024, they recognized nearly 60 suppliers across 20 categories based on specific measurable performance criteria. These weren't subjective awards. Suppliers either met the numbers or they didn't. Samsung takes this even further. Their environmental standards include over 100 evaluation items: water management stability, contaminant management, and impact on aquatic ecosystems. They don't rate suppliers as good or bad. They use platinum, gold, and core certifications based on quantifiable data. Here's your implementation framework. For every standard you set, answer 3 questions. What specific behavior or outcome am I measuring? What's the exact metric or benchmark for success? How will someone know if they've met it without asking me? If you can't answer all 3, your standard is too vague. Research from 2024 shows that 94% of organizations assess whether employee behaviors align with company standards. But only 17% actually give separate ratings for outcomes versus behaviors. That gap is where standards die. Your team shouldn't be guessing what good performance looks like. They should know exactly what winning means. Strategy number 2. Communicate standards with the same intensity you communicate crises. Here's a statistic that should terrify you. Only 5.9% of organizations communicate their goals daily. That means 94% of teams are working toward targets they heard about once, maybe in a quarterly meeting, and never again. IKEA doesn't publish its IWAY standards once and forget about them. They embed these standards into every supplier interaction, every audit, every contract negotiation. It's been their operating system for over 20 years. When standards become background noise instead of front-of-mind priorities, they become suggestions. Research from 2025 shows that teams with clear, frequently communicated goals perform up to 35% better than teams without them. But here's the catch. It's not about saying it more. It's about building systems that make standards impossible to ignore. Quick question before we continue. What's the biggest challenge you face in maintaining standards with your team? Communication? Accountability? Drop it in the comments below. And if this is reshaping how you think about team performance, smash that like button so other leaders can find this. Here's what winning teams do differently. They create communication rhythms. Toyota doesn't wait for annual reviews to discuss supplier performance. They have quarterly evaluations, monthly check-ins, and real-time dashboards showing exactly where each partner stands. Your implementation plan: daily stand-ups that reference standards explicitly, visual dashboards showing standard compliance in real time, weekly one-on-ones that tie individual work back to standards, monthly team reviews celebrating standard achievements. The goal isn't to micromanage, it's to make standards so visible that following them becomes muscle memory. When 75% of employees say teamwork and collaboration are essential, but only 18% have their communication skills evaluated in reviews, you've got a massive disconnect. Close that gap. Before we dive into strategy 3, thousands of business leaders are joining our community to get weekly breakdowns of Fortune 500 strategies that actually work in the real world. If you want to think and lead like the top 1% of executives, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss these insider insights. Strategy 3. Lead by example. Enforce standards starting with yourself. Here's the uncomfortable truth that most leadership books won't tell you. Standards erode from the top down, not the bottom up. When leaders tolerate mediocrity, they give everyone permission to lower the bar. Remember when I said high-performing employees are 87% less likely to leave? Here's why. They hate working in environments where standards are optional. When you let one person show up late, miss deadlines, or deliver subpar work without consequences, you're not just accepting that person's performance. You're telling your top performers their excellence doesn't matter. Samsung and Toyota don't just preach standards. They fire suppliers who consistently fail to meet them. In 2025, Toyota's supplier recognition program varies annually because it refuses to lower standards to hand out more awards. If your organization achieved or exceeded performance objectives, you get recognized. If not, you don't. Period. But here's where this gets personal. The hardest place to enforce standards is with yourself. When was the last time you held yourself to the same deadlines you demand from your team? When did you last follow the same communication protocols you require of others? Here's your framework for ownership-based enforcement. First, audit yourself. Where are you falling short of the standards you've set? Fix that before you address anyone else. Second, create transparent accountability systems. When 82% of performance management systems fail, it's usually because consequences feel arbitrary. Make the connection between standards and outcomes crystal clear. Third, address standard violations immediately. Research shows that 33% of HR professionals point to poor team collaboration as the top morale killer. But poor collaboration isn't the disease. It's a symptom of unclear or unenforced standards. When someone misses a standard, you have 48 hours to address it. Not to punish, to clarify. Here's the standard we agreed on. Here's what happened. Here's what needs to change. If you wait, you're giving everyone else permission to let standards slip. Finally, celebrate standard compliance publicly. Toyota doesn't just punish failure. They recognize excellence with awards in over 20 performance categories. When someone consistently meets or exceeds standards, make them a model for the team. All right, here's your step-by-step action plan to implement these strategies starting this week. Week 1. Audit your current standards. Pull out your employee handbook, your team policies, whatever you're working with. For each standard, ask, is this specific? Is it measurable? Does my team know it without looking it up? Red flag anything vague. Rewrite it using the 3-question framework from Strategy 1. Week 2. Build your communication rhythm. Pick 3 standards that matter most to your team's success right now. Create daily touchpoints that mention these standards. This could be a morning stand-up, a project management dashboard, or a Slack reminder. The key is consistency. Week 3. Establish accountability systems. Schedule one-on-ones with each team member to review standards and performance. Make this a recurring meeting, weekly or bi-weekly. Use this time to celebrate wins and address gaps immediately. Week 4. Lead by example. Identify one standard you've personally let slide. Maybe it's response times. It's perhaps meeting prep. Maybe it's documentation. Fix it publicly. Let your team see you holding yourself to the same bar you're setting for them. Here's what I want you to do. Pick one standard this week and commit to communicating it daily. Then, come back and share your progress in the comments. Let's build a community of leaders who actually enforce what they preach. Before you implement these strategies, help other leaders discover this content. The frameworks we just covered, crystal clear standards, consistent communication, ownership-based enforcement, are precisely what separates successful teams from everyone else. Hit like if these Fortune 500 frameworks gave you a new perspective on team performance. Subscribe for more strategies that drive real results. And share this with that manager or founder who's struggling to get their team aligned. They need to see this. Which strategy are you implementing first? Crystal clear standards, communication rhythms, or accountability systems? Drop it in the comments and join leaders who are transforming their approach with these weekly insights.
This is the C-Suite Playbook, where Fortune 500 strategies meet actionable insights. Your competitive advantage starts here.